2,300,000 blocks of stone, 45 centuries old, aligned to true north within a fraction of a degree. The Great Pyramid of Giza is the most analyzed structure on Earth, and millions of people believe mainstream science has the story completely wrong. They believe it's too precise, too massive, and too ancient to be explained by copper tools in human muscle. They believe it was built by a lost civilization wiped out by a comet 12,000 years ago. That theory has exploded across the internet. It sounds incredible. And that's the problem. Because the real story, the one backed by actual evidence, is more impressive than any conspiracy. And almost nobody is telling it. Here's the version you've probably heard. Author Graham Hancock argues that mainstream archaeology is hiding a lost chapter of human history. His case rests on a handful of powerful claims, and they sound devastating. First, the math problem. The pyramid was supposedly built in 20 years. To the division, that's one multi-ton block quarried, transported, and placed every 2.5 minutes around the clock for 2 decades straight. Impossible, right? Second, the tool problem. The builders allegedly used soft copper chisels, but the internal chambers are made of Aswan granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth. Hancock says that's like cutting steel with a plastic knife. Third, the knowledge problem. The pyramid is aligned to true north more precisely than the Greenwich Observatory. No compass, no GPS, and not a single blueprint or construction plan has ever been found. Fourth, the age problem. Geologist Robert Schoch claims the Sphinx shows water erosion that could only come from thousands of years of heavy rainfall that stopped long before the Egyptians supposedly built it. Researcher Robert Bovall says the 3 pyramids mirror Orion's belt, but the alignment only becomes perfect around 10,500 BC. Put it all together, and you get Hancock's grand theory. An advanced civilization existed before the last ice age, was destroyed by a comet impact around 12,800 years ago, and the pyramids are their surviving monument. A time capsule, not a tomb. It's a breathtaking narrative. Millions believe it, but every single one of those claims has a problem. Let's start with the one Hancock almost never mentions. In 2013, archaeologists discovered a set of papyri in a sealed cave at Wadi al-Jarf on the Red Sea coast. They are the oldest papyri ever found in Egypt. They are the diary of a man named Merer, a work crew foreman who personally transported limestone blocks to Giza during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu. Read that again. We have a first-hand, contemporaneous logistical account of the Great Pyramid's construction. It describes the crews, the boat routes, the delivery schedules. It names Khufu's half-brother Ankh-haf as the construction overseer. This isn't a theory, it's a primary source. Any script about the pyramids that doesn't mention the mirror papyri is 20 years out of date. Now let's dismantle the claims, one by one. The math problem. That famous calculation treats all 2.3 million blocks as identical. They are not. The vast majority are rough-cut core limestone blocks weighing around 2.5 tons, the weight of a large SUV. The massive 80-ton granite beams are a tiny fraction of the total. More importantly, this wasn't a single assembly line. Archaeologist Mark Lehner's excavations uncovered an entire worker city at Giza, bakeries, breweries, dormitories, medical facilities, housing an organized labor force of roughly 20,000 to 30,000 people, working in rotating crews of several thousand at a time. Multiple teams quarried, transported, and placed blocks simultaneously across different sections of the pyramid. When you model parallel workflows with an organized labor force handling mostly moderate-weight limestone blocks, the schedule becomes demanding but achievable. Not comfortable, not easy, but possible. The tool problem. This is where the conspiracy version is most dishonest. The Egyptians did not cut granite with copper chisels alone. We know this because we found their actual toolkit, thousands of artifacts across multiple quarry sites. They used dolerite pounders, balls of stone harder than granite, for rough shaping. Entire fields of discarded dolerite pounders have been excavated at the Aswan quarries. For precision cutting, they used copper saws and tube drills, but the copper wasn't the cutting agent. It was the carrier. The cutting agent was abrasive sand, quartz, and corundum particles, both of which are harder than granite on the Mohs scale. Experimental archaeologist Denai Stocks replicated this process using only Bronze Age materials. He cut granite. He drilled granite. He polished granite. It was slow, grueling, labor-intensive work, but it produced surfaces matching what we see inside the king's chamber. The answer isn't patience in sand as some vague hand wave. It's a specific, tested, replicable technology. Saying the Egyptians couldn't cut granite is like saying they couldn't do something we've watched modern researchers do with exact replicas of their tools. The knowledge problem, the true north alignment, is genuinely extraordinary, but it's not inexplicable. In the year 2000, Egyptologist Kate Spence published a method using simultaneous observation of two circumpolar stars and a plumb line. When the stars align vertically relative to the plumb bob, you're looking at true north. This method requires no advanced technology. It requires clear skies, a straight edge, a weight on a string, and patience. Spence showed that the minor alignment errors across different pyramids actually correlate with the changing positions of those stars over time, which is powerful evidence that this is the method they actually used. As for the missing blueprints, the Merer papyri are construction documents, and the absence of a complete architectural plan isn't mysterious. Most ancient documents haven't survived 45 centuries. We have construction records for other Egyptian projects. The gap is one of preservation, not conspiracy. The age problem. Now, Robert Schoch's water erosion hypothesis for the Sphinx is the most geologically interesting claim in this entire debate, and it deserves honest treatment rather than blind acceptance or dismissal. Schoch sees vertical erosion channels and argues for prolonged heavy rainfall, which he dates to before 10,000 BC. But here's what the script you've seen before never tells you. The Sahara wasn't always a desert. The African humid period, the so-called Green Sahara, brought significant rainfall to North Africa until roughly 3500 BC. That's thousands of years more recent than Schoch's date. Furthermore, geologist Colin Reeder proposed that localized rainwater runoff from the plateau above the Sphinx enclosure could produce the observed erosion within conventional timelines. And differential weathering between hard and soft limestone layers, combined with salt crystallization and subsurface moisture, can mimic water erosion patterns. Schoch's hypothesis hasn't been definitively refuted, but it hasn't been confirmed either, and there are credible alternative explanations that don't require rewriting 12,000 years of human history. And the Orion correlation? Astronomer Ed Krupp, director of the Griffith Observatory, demonstrated that Bovell's map only works if you flip it upside down, inverting north and south. When properly oriented, the correlation falls apart. The perfect alignment at 10,500 BC is reverse-engineered from a continuous precessional cycle where you can find a match at many points if you're flexible with your criteria. This isn't a celestial clock. It's pattern recognition looking for confirmation. So where does this leave us? Göbekli Tepe is real. It does prove that pre-agricultural humans were capable of monumental construction 11,000 years ago. But it was discovered and excavated by mainstream archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, not by Hancock. And it shows sophisticated hunter-gatherers building ritual structures, not an advanced global civilization with metal tools and seafaring ships. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is a legitimate, ongoing scientific debate. A comet may have struck the ice sheets 12,800 years ago, but even if it did, that doesn't prove a lost civilization existed to be destroyed by it. Those are two completely separate claims connected only by narrative, not evidence. Here's what the evidence actually shows. And this is the part that should blow your mind. A Bronze Age civilization, without iron, without the wheel, without electricity, organized tens of thousands of workers into a precision labor force. They developed a stone-cutting technology using abrasive sand that modern engineers didn't fully understand until experimental archaeologists replicated it. They aligned their monument to true north using nothing but stars and string. They quarried 80-ton granite beams, floated them 500 miles down the Nile, and lifted them 200 feet into the air. They did this not because they had secret advanced technology. They did it because they were brilliant, because human ingenuity, applied at scale with extraordinary organization, can achieve things that look impossible from the outside. That's not a boring answer. That's the most inspiring answer there is. The Great Pyramid doesn't need aliens. It doesn't need a lost civilization. It needs you to take the ancient Egyptians seriously, as engineers, astronomers, and organizers of staggering genius. The real mystery isn't whether a lost world built the pyramids, it's how we keep underestimating the